Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video I'll be discussing some brief thoughts on episode 13 of the anime series Suisei no Gargantia. Leto and Chambers' challenge in the sky, raised by former Commander Kugel's machine-caliber striker, only escalates as this episode opens, with Pinion and his crew left scrambling to keep up with the fierce momentum of these warring airborne Yunburos. For me to have said the first moments of this, as seen in episode 12, were akin to a chess game in the sky, was perhaps speaking a little too prematurely on the subject, as in this one it went far beyond a game of chess, and became more so a ballet of weapon spire and logic-based posturing by the two differing AIs. One of the things I love about this world is its technology, and how even this late in the game, it has yet remaining technological surprises hidden up the sleeves of its inhabitants. For one, Leto's use of Chambers' NeuroPlus application, which unifies the machine caliber and the user into ultimately one fluent biotech organism, if you will. In theory, allowing Leto to have much more human-like command of the machine caliber's movements, and increasingly cutting down its reaction time to its opponents. I say in theory largely because in order to see this process taken to its most advantageous degree, as the warning was given to Leto by Chamber himself, it would be virtual suicide for Leto. It would overpower his biostructure and eat him alive, essentially. The other surprise tech that was on display was, of course, the much speculated after key from last episode that Rigid was forced to consider using in their efforts against Stryker and the ship full of cultists claiming it as their god. Once she inserts the key into a series of computers hidden in a command center surrounding one of the spires of Gargantia and guided by a group of elders calling themselves the Five Sages, their screens illuminate to reveal the words Orbital Mass Driver System. What is truly fascinating to me about this is how it is the complete antithesis of what they did in Star Trek First Contact regarding the origins of warp drive. It was done there in a very novel and some would say very noble way. A nuclear missile was modified to be man's first space warp-driven rocket. However, herein, what they've done is take a rocket-launching system, the ladder that unfolds to the clouds, as it's said, and modifies it into a means of shooting explosive projectiles, essentially missiles, a device that would only ever be used as a last resort, which comes a-calling in the form of Stryker and its heavily mind-warped followers. With tactical precision does this apparatus lay the smackdown on the cultists' small fleet, as Leto and Chamber try their best to outmatch Stryker in the clouds above. What ultimately surprised me in those intervening moments was Amy's flying onto the scene, as if she sensed her need to be there, to reach Leto in a time of disillusionment, which was true in a sense, as he and Chamber went on to greatly debate. Even Chamber had gotten to the point where he blatantly confronted Leto with the question of whether or not he wanted to die. Yet, seeing Amy in those moments, seeing in his mind's eye all of his adventures so far that he's had in this world, and comparing them with the sad memories of losing a brother, perhaps even a part of himself as well in the process, led him to finally stand up and once and for all decide that to follow such ill-founded, speciously presented, and heinous orders was the last humanly thing he would ever want to do again. He chose life, he chose Amy, and he wished with the reservations that it would never be, that it could be, and Chamber was only too happy to grant him his wish. I can't even tell you how satisfying, and even sad in parts, it was to see Chamber jettison Leto's capsule and go in for the kill against Stryker. All the while it seemed to be somewhat of a rogue AI, with its last orders being carried out in a skewed fashion due to perhaps faulty programming. Yet Chamber could understand that there was a sense of logic at hand behind its processes, pure, unfeeling logic as it were. And here's where we're confronted with an intriguing quandary. Was it, in essence, Chamber whose programming was corrupted, as Stryker would come to suggest, as what his final actions embody is a sense of self-awareness, of compassion through his observations of Leto's reaching beyond his orders and the world that he knew, finding his humanity and compassion himself? Was it not, in fact, Chamber who was molded and shaped, modified, if you like, by what he came to understand through Leto, and thus became the faulty one, but only in a sense the sense that he was no longer simply a machine or a machine caliber, but had evolved beyond his programming? Sure, you could argue, as he came to do with Stryker, that these were motivations achieved through the simple logic of being programmed to help and save humanity in any way that he could. That was his primary mission, and to take these actions, sending Leto off to live a life, and say he wished for Leto to make him proud the way he knew Leto could, and even in that last moment, referring to Stryker with the clarion call, "Go to hell, you tin can." It all shows us a machine who has achieved a sense of humanity. Not to reference Star Trek again, but Commander Data would be envious. Let's face it though, any machine or machine caliber ready, willing to be, and convinced that it is a god is faulty at best. And so Chamber destroys Stryker in a brilliant energy display that takes himself out with it, setting the ocean below them aglow and effectively saving the world. From there we see Luckage, in something of a big surprise for me, seemingly becoming a part of Gargantia and becoming a bit of a thorn in the side of Bellows, as she's effectively saved Pinion's life, in answer to his own courageous act of self-sacrifice that he thankfully never got to carry out when the chips were down and all looked lost. We find that Bevel, having learned a great deal of the history of their world through Leto's ongoing findings, has actually become a teacher of sorts, sharing the archaeological history of the Earth with anyone willing to learn it. And we also see that Ridget is being well and truly accepted as the fleet commander of Gargantia, and that the ships that had broken away from the hub have returned home. And finally, we see Leto himself, leading the charge for a better tomorrow as one part excavator and another part ambassador to the Hideos, having concocted a way to discern whenever they're agitated and changing up the rhythm of how he interacts with them in their den to allow safe passage. Their first humble steps hopefully eschewing a future where either side is trying ad infinitum ad nauseum to slaughter each other. The penultimate scene being the most pleasing one for me, as Amy meets Leto upon his return, and they walk off happily together, the endless possibilities of their future laying wait just ahead of them. It really had me a little misty in places, this finale, I have to say. In what I can say for me will go down as a modern masterpiece, we were given a little bit of everything from Gargantia's inception. Adventure, intrigue, scary revelations, quirky humor, societal commentary, human relations, ecology, appreciation of history, and disdain for war and needless death, and just a thrilling and fun look into this very rich and beautiful world, which at its heart is an extension of our own, born out of a dreamer's fantasy and fancies. It also successfully gave us a series of characters, not limited only to the leads of the series, that had overarching character arcs. Some of them were a little more subtle, as they weren't necessarily the series' focus, but they were there nonetheless. And by the end, I find I'm satisfied enough with its conclusion to be absolutely happy, but would also happily jump at a chance to see further delvings into this world, something I'll definitely be hoping to see someday eventually. And so I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 13 of Suisei no Gargantia as a series finale. Did it wrap up for you all of the loose ends that accrued throughout the series, as it did for me? Did you feel satisfied with it, whether emotionally or entertainment-wise, by the end credit roll? Let me know down below. And otherwise, that'll be it for me on this one. I can assuredly say from beginning to end, I thoroughly enjoyed watching this series, and I feel like it could have wrapped up on a happier note. I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.